was David Cesarani against the proposition. Now for the proposition, Christopher Hitchens.
Well now, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. I hope I may say comrades and friends. Okay, then fire. It's not that crowded theatre, but fire again. You see, if you remember the appalling judgment actually rendered by Mr. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in that case, he was comparing the action that I've just imitated, parodied, to the action of a group of Yiddish-speaking socialists who gave out a leaflet in Yiddish only, opposing Mr. Wilson's war, and actually calling attention, as they were, to a major conflagration raging in Europe in which they did not think the United States should become involved. Be very, very, very careful when people give you arguments from authority or tradition that suggest that free speech can be limited by higher authorities like the sainted Holmes, because that's what you'll get. The end of it is a group of Yiddish-speaking radicals told they can't hand out a leaflet in Yiddish on a major question of the day. That's always how it will end, no matter how high-mindedly or creepily or sinisterly it's presented to you. My favorite crowded theatre story is actually about the terrible Broadway production of The Diary of Anne Frank. Some people may remember it, it's in the 60s. It was a production famous for its longueur. In the third act, as the German soldiers came pounding on the door and stamping into the parlor, someone in the front row shouted, "She's in the attic." Call me old-fashioned if you will, ladies and gentlemen. But as you will see, I don't think a joke is really a joke unless it's at somebody's expense. Now, if you're thick-skinned and broad-backed enough to take that, I might have a bit more for you. The real question, utterly dodged by David in his shady remarks, is this. Who's going to decide? We've already found that Oliver Wendell Holmes isn't competent on the point. Who will you appoint? Who will be the one who says, I know exactly where the limit should be, I know how far you can go, and I know when you've gone too far. And I'll decide that. Who do you think, who do you know? Who have you heard of? Who have you read about in history who you'd give that job? I would say, just for this evening, I wouldn't give it to anyone who's spoken so far on the other side. Now, actually, I do know a bit about Milton and quite a lot about Thomas Paine as well. And Mr. Paine actually updated and I think improved John Milton's Areopagitica, which is the classic case for free expression. And those of you who know Areopagitica and Paine's commentary on it will know that it recommends free speech in this way, not for you, but for the people you are listening to and the people whose comments you hope to hear in return, for your own education, for your own enlightenment, and for your own elucidation. As Mr. Paine says, commenting on Milton, one of the vices of those who would repress the opinions of others is they make themselves prisoners of their own opinions because they deny themselves the right and the means of changing them. Should this not be as plain as could be? The free interplay of ideas is not something that those of us who wish to speak or unload our opinions insist upon for that sake. It's because we want to hear what is said in response, however unwelcome it may be to us. Thus, the defense of any one opinion or form of expression is a defense of all of them. The classic statement in modern times of this, in my view, would be Aryeh Nayar's book, Defending My Enemy, where he describes the decision of the American Civil Liberties Union, of which I'm a supporter, to take the case of the American Nazi Party and its right to parade swastikas through the town of Skokie, Illinois, a favorite retirement community for those who'd survived the final solution. ACLU lost a lot of members on that proposition, but we did the right thing by the First Amendment. In the book, he has a wonderful extract from Robert Bolt's play Man for All Seasons, which some of you will have seen at least in celluloid form, where, if you recall, Sir Thomas More is talking to one of the witch hunters and prosecutors and says, so you'd cut a road through the laws, would you, to get after the devil? And the witch hunter and prosecutor says, I'd cut down every law in England to do that. And Thomas More said, that's worth knowing. And when the devil turned round to meet you and had you at bay, where would you look for shelter, Mr. Prosecutor? The laws all being flat and cut down. Where would you turn then? It's impossible ever to think of infringing the right of anyone else to free speech without arranging, in a sense, calling in advance for this to happen to you too. It's quite different, obviously different, from any question of information. Information may be classified, information may be copyrighted. Every word said on that score by the first speaker on the other side was a complete waste of her breath, because it's not what we're meant to talk about. We're meant to talk about the expression of opinion and conviction, not breach of copyright or leaking of classified information. If we'd wanted to talk about that, we would have phrased the motion differently. There have been some bad signs lately, a lot of slippage in what I would have thought were the pedantic obviousness of the points I've just made. The imprisonment of David Irving in Austria for a thought crime, for the possibility that he might, while in Austria, have given a speech saying that he doubts some of the verdicts of history, as I consider it to be, about the final solution. There's no victim to this crime. The Austrian consul called me up weeping with self-pity when I pointed this out in the Wall Street Journal and said, "But we thought finally Austria would be popular. We had done something that you would all like. So gemütlich. The land that survives on the myth that Hitler was German and Beethoven was Viennese. The land that had Waldheim as its chancellor and has Jörg Haider as a member of its government, can revenge itself on a defenseless British academic and jailer. This is a standing disgrace. And there are attempts to extend similar thought crime laws to other topics of historical importance, the most depressing of which recently is the decision, provisionally at any rate, by the French Parliament, to criminalize discussion of the Armenian massacres, considered by me and most others to have been a planned genocide in the early part of the 20th century. Now you can't take the contrary view. You couldn't, for example, argue, as you can, that actually in the provinces of Turkey where Russian forces were not engaged, Armenians were not massacred. In other words, it could be that it's partly an act of war as well as an act of ethnocide. Speculations of this kind would now be at your own peril. The law on which it's modeled, the loi Guesso, which criminalizes in France discussion of the Holocaust as well, is named for the French Stalinist, Monsieur Guesso, who sponsored it and whose spirit, and the spirit of whose hero, is present in all of these and other such discussions. 1A, okay, I stipulate that all of these things, when they happen, offend me very much. I'm offended by them, I want you to understand. It goes to the core of what I do and what I am. The First Amendment doesn't just provide me with a living, the First Amendment is my life. When it's infringed, I am offended. I have claimed the right to be offended. Do not claim the right to go and burn down someone else's place of worship, to threaten their editor with violent reprisal, to picket their home, to publish their name in threatening terms on the internet. I won't do any of that. It doesn't mean I can't be offended, but it does mean that I'm even more offended by those who claim the right not just to be offended, but to seek violent reprisal, as is so vividly and currently being done by the votaries of the Prophet Muhammad in recent cases of which I only have no time at all to inform you, but about which you already know, and to which I hope I will be asked to return. Thanks very much.
That was Christopher Hitchens.
For a lawsuit, and that lawsuit was not pursued. And basically, the community felt that their hurts and their concerns were not being addressed. And they went overseas, and they sought support from overseas, and then the whole situation went out of control.
All right. So wait. No. Christopher's turn to let Christopher respond.
No, I just want to finish the point. What I'm saying is that had it been addressed at the local level, it would have never become an international phenomena that it became. It should be addressed at the local level, like Signy did. When the Philadelphia Inquirer decided to publish that same cartoon, they called the Muslim community and said, we want to do something about this and we want to create dialogue. Now, that was responsible. That was socially responsible.
Christopher, go ahead.
When Dr. Samuel Johnson had finished his great lexicography, the first real English dictionary, he was visited by various delegations of people to congratulate him, including a delegation of London's respectable womanhood who came to his parlour in Fleet Street and said, Doctor, we congratulate you on your decision to exclude all indecent words from your dictionary. And he said, ladies, I congratulate you on your persistence in looking them up. I think anyone who understands that story, which I'm pleased to see everybody obviously does, will see through the sinister piffle we were just treated to just now. if people are determined to be offended, if they will climb up on the ladder, balancing it precariously on their own toilet system, to be upset by what they see through the neighbour's bathroom window, there's nothing you can do about that. The imams in Denmark did the following. First, they invited the intervention of 22 foreign ambassadors in Denmark's internal affairs. Itself a disgrace. The Danish Prime Minister quite rightly repudiated it. Then they added 2 cartoons of their own, drawn by them, one of them showing the Prophet Muhammad in the shape of a pig. Then they shot those around the Muslim world until they could get kindling going under the embassies of a small democracy in the capital cities of countries where demonstrations are normally not allowed. They violated Danish diplomatic immunity. They tried to sabotage the Danish economy. There were random pogroms and attacks on individual Scandinavians. And David Cesarini says he doesn't like the reminiscence of the 1930s that is inscribed in the cartoon. I don't like the reminiscence of the 1930s that is involved in a Kristallnacht against Denmark, put up by religious demagogues and thugs. And that's what needs to be condemned.
David Cesarani. Against the proposition. Finally, for the proposition, Christopher Hitchens.
The real question, or if you like, subtext question before us is this: is nothing sacred? What we've really been discussing is the old question of whether or not there is such an offence as blasphemy or profanity. Now, if I don't tell you exactly what I think about the simpering speeches that we heard from the other side, I'm not censoring myself. I'm just being polite and civil and saving some of your time. What I will not prevent myself from saying, or will not let anyone else prevent me from saying, is the following. It is wrong, and always has been, for churches, powerful, secular, human institutions, to claim exemption from criticism, which is what's really being asked here. If there's going to be respect, it has to be mutual. Does Islam respect my right to unbelief? Of course it does not. Does it respect the right of a Muslim to apostatize and change belief? Of course it does not. I have had to have, I can name now 4 or 5 friends, 6 or 8 maybe, if I have time, 5 or 6 of whom you would certainly have heard of, who have to live their lives under police protection for commenting on Islam, for having an opinion on it. And this is getting steadily worse all the time. And it's grotesque. Here is an enormous religion with gigantic power that claims that an archangel spoke to an illiterate peasant and brought him a final revelation that supersedes all others. It's a plagiarism by an epileptic of the worst bits of Judaism and Christianity. That's obvious, it seems to me. How long do you think I'm going to be able to say that anywhere I like? It would already be quite a risky thing to say in quite a lot of places. I did not come to the United States of America 25 years ago to learn how to keep my mouth shut. And I'm going to reject all offers that I change that policy, however simperingly they are put. Okay?
Please join me in thanking